What's up guys, it's your boy Bruhpedia, back at it again with a new showdown video. So for today, we're going to do something very different. I'm actually going to explain to you the basics of VGC, Video Game Cup, for those who do not know what the acronym is, which is the actual format by which competitions were played. So, the basics of VGC. There are many things that you need to take into consideration when entering a VGC tournament. Things like the regulation which you're entering, which fortunately I do have a list of Pokemon. Shout out to games8.co for classifying every Pokemon which are able to be used. This is the full list of allowed Pokemon, ranging from the likes of Mewtwo, Ho-Oh, Lugia, Kyogre, Groudon, Rayquaza, Palkia, Dialga, Giratina, Reshiram, Zekrom, Kyurem, etc. all the way to Terrapagos, the newest big boy legendary. But of course, Pokemon which can be used in the regulation as well are the likes of Moltres, Articuno, Zapdos, the legendary beast from Johto, meaning Entei, Suicune, and Raikou, the Regis from Gen 3, the Lake Spirits from Gen 4,
along with Cresselia and Heatran, still from Gen 4. Oh, and also I forgot, from Gen 3, the Lati twins being Latios and Latias.
From Gen 5, you can use the legendary genies, Tornadus, Thundurus, and Landorus.
Still from Gen 5, you have the legendary Swords of Justice being Cobalion, Virizion, and Terrakion.
Alright, that's it for Gen 6 and Gen 7. For Gen 8,
you have Regieleki, Regidraco, Glastria, Spectria, and Urshifu, both forms.
Compared to, I think Monotype, which allows for only one use, for only one form of Urshifu, being Urshifu Water. And from Gen 9, Pogopon, and Runus Quartet, being Tinglu, Chiyu, Chenpao, and Wuchen.
Plus, you have the mischievous trio, being Munkidori, Okidogi, and Fezandipti. Along with all that, you have all the Paradox Pokemon from the past and the future.
For the illegal Pokemon, which are actually banned in this regulation, you've got Mew, Jirachi, Deoxys, Fione and Manafi, Darkrai, Shaymin, the big man himself, Arceus, Keldeo, Meloetta, Diancie, Hoopa, Volcanion, Zarude, and the last mythical Pecharunt, or Pecharunt, whatever you want to pronounce it. So those are considered to be the mythical Pokemon. If you want a more complete list of which Pokemon you can use or not, you can use each and every Pokemon from every generation which are available in Scarlet Violet, except for this very small list. And so now I'm going on the topic of the moves and terrains. I've classified most used moves in VGC, which consist mostly of setup moves and whatnot, as in a short list which I will actually detail to you. And it is broken down into some separate categories, being the disruptive moves, the setup moves / abilities, the recovery moves / abilities of course, the redirecting moves, the stat nullifying moves, the weather / terrain setting moves, and last but not least, the speed control moves. Let's just start with the disruptive moves. First off, there is no move as useful as the legendary Protect, which I think is still the most common move found on VGC Pokemon. But Protect is also outclassed by some other moves such as Spiky Shield. So what Protect does, pretty simple, it provides protection against all damaging moves and all status moves thrown by the opponent. It can be as strong as, I don't know, maybe Guillotine or Fissure, which is an Oko move, or it can be as weak as, let's say, Tackle, right? Or even Branch Poke, for example. Second, we have Fake Out. Fake Out, which is a very good move since it can totally disrupt the flow of the game by preventing your opponent from attacking. Then we have Wide Guard, which gives full protection to your side of the field from multi-hitting moves such as Earthquake, Glacial Lance, Astral Barrage, etc. Then we have Taunt, which totally shuts down any support Pokemon by preventing it from using status moves. And status moves are any moves which do not deal damage in any way, shape or form. Like direct damage, I mean. Then we have moves which give the status in question, like status to your Pokemon, I mean, which are the Spores, Will-O-Wisp, T-Wave, and at a certain extent, even Curse from Ghost types. So Spore is a very nifty move, which is a lot less to say about how good it is in VGC. It can put the Pokemon you target to sleep, except if it's a Grass type. Then we have Will-O-Wisp, which can instantly burn the opponent, except if the opponent is a Fire type. Then we have T-Wave, which will paralyze the target, except if the target is an electric type or a ground type, since ground types are immune to electric type moves. And Curse, which affects nearly every Pokemon, right? But it's a very niche move since it cuts down your HP for 50%. And then we have Screens. Screens being, of course, Reflect for physical moves, meaning the likes of Close Combat, Wild Charge, Precipice Blades, or even Glacial Lance. We have Light Screen for the likes of Electro Drift, Astral Barrage, Tri-Attack, etc. And we have Aurora Veil for any damaging moves, but can only be used when snowing. So all that quite literally wrap up the disruptive moves. And now onto the stat increasing / decreasing moves. So for the stat modifying moves and abilities, the most common can be the likes of Nasty Plot to double your special attack on the Pokemon that use the Nasty Plot in question. We have Scary Face, which affects only one target, but it decreases by half the speed of the target that you chose. Then we have Swords Dance / Belly Drum, two very good moves which for the case of Sword Dance doubles the attack of a Pokemon using the move, and Belly Drum, it maxes out the Pokemon's attack but at the cost of half of its HP. And you have some abilities which can also reduce stats passively whenever the Pokemon is switching. For example, the most common ability ever, Intimidate, from Milord himself Incineroar, or even the ruinous abilities such as Tablets of Ruin for decreasing the attack of all Pokemon in the field except for Wo-Chien by 25%, You have Sword of Ruin doing the same amount of decrease but to the defense for all Pokemon in the field except for itself. You have Vessel of Ruin, which does the same thing but for special attack, and it does not affect Tinglu. And lastly, we have Beads of Ruin, which does the exact same thing as the 3 previous abilities but for special defense, and it is only negated if you're using another Chi-Yu on your side of the field. Right, so these are mostly the stat decreasing / increasing moves, which are not many, but there are some, as you can see, because VGC is a very quick metagame, not as patient as 1v1. Thus, you don't really have the opportunity to be setting up for next turn, because most of the time there is not even a next turn. Right, now for the recovery moves. You have the likes of Rest, which makes your Pokemon totally recover all damage and all status except for Curse, and things like Taunt and whatnot. Like, if a Pokemon is burnt, if a Pokemon is paralyzed, his status will be updated to Asleep, and it will recover all of its HP. But the Pokemon will be sleeping for 2 turns. Then you have Recover, to be able to recover your own HP. You have Heal Pulse, which heals your target 50% of its health, but cannot heal yourself, right? You have Life Dew, which makes all Pokemon which are out on your side of the field heal 25% of HP. And then you have Lunar Blessing, which does the exact same thing as Life Dew, but also recovers status effects. Then you have the redirecting moves, which are Follow Me / Rage Powder. Follow Me is quite literally the best in its category. Like, no Pokemon can ignore Follow Me except with Stalwart and Propeller Tail abilities, which, as I just mentioned, are not affected by redirection moves. You have Rage Powder, which does the exact same thing as Follow Me. However, the list for Pokemon which cannot be affected by that move are all grass types. Even if your Pokemon Terra Grass, it will then ignore the Rage Powder in question. And of course, Stalwart and Propeller Tail. And lastly, we have Ally Switch, which makes both of your Pokemon switch place. Let's say if I were to Volt Switch on the Necrozma and Necrozma use Ally Switch, then Volt Switch would instead target the Groudon, which in this case would not do any damage since Groudon is a ground type. And then we have the stat negating moves, and for that we only have 2 moves in this category, being Haze, which even if the Pokemon protects will decrease all stat changes on the field, and we have Clear Smog, which decreases the stat changes on the field, but if you protect, you won't be affected by that. Then we have Weather / Terrain. So, for weather moves, we have things like Sunny Day, which sets up the sun, of course. We have Rain Dance, which sets up the rain. So why did I include both of those in the same category, kinda? Both of those do nearly the same thing, boosting power of fire and water type move respectively, and cutting by half the power of water and fire type moves respectively. Then we have things like Sandstorm and Snowscape. Of course, each of these have an ability to go with them, such as Drought, Drizzle, Sandstream, and Snow Warning, which of course sets up their respective weathers. For the weathers, one thing I forgot to mention, Sandstream actually boosts the special defense of all rock-type Pokemon on the field, and Snow Warning boosts the defense of all Ice-type Pokemon currently on the field. So these do have their advantages and their disadvantages, such as being able to use moves such as Solar Beam or Solar Blade in the sun for only one turn instead of two, or even Electro Shot for only one turn under Drizzle, or Weather Ball being a rock-type move in Sandstream, or even Blizzard hitting 100% of the time in Snow. And for terrain, as I mentioned, there are 4 types of abilities and 4 moves, of course, which are Psychic Terrain, Electric Terrain, Grassy Terrain, and Misty Terrain. Wow, who would have guessed? With their abilities which go hand in hand with them, being Psychic Surge, Electric Surge / Hadron Engine, third, Grassy Surge, and fourth, Misty Surge. So, the Psychic Terrain actually prevents all priority moves from going off, meaning that even if your Pokemon has the ability Prankster and tries to use a setup move on a target, any target, even a Pokemon on your side of the field, it will fail. But if the Pokemon uses it on the terrain itself, such as Tailwind, the Tailwind will go into effect. So that you have to keep in mind. Also, Psychic Terrain boosts the power of all Psychic type moves which are from Pokemon which touch the ground. Then you have Electric Terrain, which prevents all Pokemon from going to sleep if they are touching the ground, and boosts the power of all Electric type moves if the Pokemon is touching the ground. Third, we have Grassy Terrain, which boosts the power of all Grass type moves, and provides recovery for about 1/10 of the Pokemon's total HP. Plus, it provides some small advantages, such as making Grassy Glide be a priority moves under Grassy Terrain. And lastly, we have Misty Terrain. All grounded Pokemon have a decreased damage output if they're using Dragon type moves. And all grounded Pokemon are immune, totally immune to all status effects, such as being burnt, being frozen, being paralyzed, being asleep, and being poisoned. So that's all for the terrains. Now for the speed controlling moves. We're starting first with Tailwind, which doubles the speed of all Pokemon on the field. Second, we have Trick Room, which reverses the speed of all the Pokemon on the field. Third, we have moves like Electro Web, which decrease the speed of all Pokemon on the field as a secondary effect after making damage. Then we have Priority Moves, which can ignore the speed brackets, the regular speed brackets, except if 2 Pokemon are fighting against each other using the same priority type of move. For example, some of the most used examples of that are Fake Out, Sucker Punch, and even Extreme Speed from things like Dragonite and all that. Then we have After You, which makes its target able to attack using the Pokemon which uses After You speed. Meaning that, let's say there is a Lilligant in the sun with Chlorophyll which uses After You, on a Torkoal. The Torkoal, being one of the slowest Pokemon ever, will be able to attack before nearly all of its opponents with a devastating eruption. Or even in the Trick Room, let's say I am using After You on a Clefairy, one non-fully evolved Pokemon, which is actually pretty slow. It will actually enable faster Pokemon such as Calyrex Shadow to be able to attack first in Trick Room. And lastly, we have moves like Quash, or items such as the Lagging Tail, which decrease the priority of opponents' moves. Meaning that let's say they were to use Quick Attack, Quick Attack's priority bracket would decrease from a 1 to a 0. Meaning that if you are using Quick Attack and you had Quash used against you, and you're fighting another Pokemon with Quick Attack as well, if it is a Quick Attack clash, the opponent will attack before you, whatever you do. And so that's basically it for all the moves that are the most used in VGC. Of course, there are some more moves, but I will not be able to put all of them in this video, unfortunately. And now for the last section of the video, we'll be talking about the items. So the items is quite a complex subject, since you have so many items that can be used on only 6 Pokemon. I classified all of the items in specific categories, which I will detail to you right now, which are recovery items, damage increase items, damage decrease item against your own Pokemon, of course, support items, and Pokemon specific items. So for the HP increase, you have the likes of Citrus Berry, which after you take 50% or more damage will help you recover 1/4 of your health. Then you have the Aguave Berry, not the Aguave Berry only, but Aguave, Figgy berries, the likes of that, which actually recover 1/3 of your health. And then you have the good old trusty Leftovers, which recover 10% of your total HP every turn. Then we have the damage increasing items. So these items increase your damage output from your Pokemon using said item. We have, for example, the choice items being Choice Scarf, Choice Band, and Choice Specs, increasing the speed, attack, and special attack respectively. And why did I include the Choice Scarf in there? It's because speed is everything in this metagame. The faster you are, the more damage you can output, right? Oh, and also one thing I forgot to mention for the choice item, those actually lock you into only one move. So be sure to use your only move slot rather meticulously, or be prepared to switch out your Pokemon if needed. Second, we have the Life Orb, which cuts your HP by 1/10 every turn, but in return gives you a boost nearly as good as a choice move. Then we have the Wise Glasses and Muscle Band. So these two items increase special attack and attack respectively by a whopping 10% more. Woohoo! So the fact that these very underwhelming items even are sometimes used is a true test of what works and what does not in VGC. Then we have the Loaded Dice, which is one of the newest items brought into existence, which will help your Pokemon use its multi-hitting moves. Not guaranteed multi-hitting ones like Surging Strikes, but like Icicle Spear, Rock Blast, Bullet Seed, etc. It will help it to hit 4 to 5 times minimum in the case of Population Bomb, it can actually reach a total of 10 hits. And also in the case of triple axel, it will help the move, if it hits right, to hit 3 times every time. And lastly we have the likes of Power Herb, which gives 1 turn of recharge to your Pokemon. Meaning that if there is a 2-turn move to be used, such as Solar Beam outside of sunlight, or Meteor Beam or Electroshot, the Pokemon will be able to unleash its attack on the first turn without worrying about charging the attack at first. But it is a one-time only item, meaning that after you use it once, it's gone. Then, for the defensive items, we've got the super effective reduction items such as the Shuka Berry for super effective ground type moves used on your Pokemon, or maybe the Copper Berry for the fighting type moves used on your Pokemon, which of course fighting type needs to be super effective on the Pokemon in question. For these super effective reduction berries, it will actually give a whopping reduction of 50% from the super effective move use, and there exists a berry for each and every type, including the normal type. Then we have the Rocky Helmet, one of the greatest invention ever, which actually damages by 1/8 of the health of a Pokemon which makes contact against your Pokemon if it is holding the Rocky Helmet. So that means that even if I, let's say, close combat your I don't know, maybe Iron Hands with the Rocky Helmet, and Iron Hands eats the attack, the opposing Pokemon which use close combat will actually get a health reduction of 8% each time it makes contact. Likewise, if there is a move such as Draining Kiss, which is actually a special move but makes contact, the Pokemon will still lose 1/8 of its total health. Then we have the Assault Vest. It decreases by half the damage of all special attacks hitting the opponent, but with a drawback of only letting the user use damaging moves. No status move for that Pokemon. Then we have the Eviolite, which boosts by twice the total defense and special defense of a Pokemon holding the item. However, there is always a caveat with all these. The Pokemon should not be a fully evolved version of what it can be. Meaning that if I were to use an Eviolite on a Charizard, it would not work, but if I use it on a Charmander or Charmeleon, that would work then. Lastly, we have some items like the Red Card, which actually removes the Pokemon which hit mine from the field. This is a one-time use item, however it has very much great value if the Pokemon which use the damaging moves against mine did have stat increases. Then we have the support items, such as the Safety Goggles, which give full protection from all powder moves, and powder moves include quite a bit of moves such as Spore, Stun Spore, Sleep Powder, Powder even, and it gives immunity to all that, plus Sand Stream. Then we have the Lumberry, which heals all of the statuses from the Pokemon in question, including Confusion. Then we have Light Clay, which gives a boost to the screen moves, being Reflect, Light Screen, and Aurora Veil. Then we have the Covert Cloak, which removes all secondary effects from the Pokemon holding the item, meaning that let's say a Pokemon were to use Fake Out on my Pokemon holding the Covert Cloak, I would always receive like the very minimal normal type move damage without the drawback of being flinched. Then we have the Clear Amulet, which is a new item, such as the Covert Cloak, right? And the clear amulet is pretty good. It ignores all stat reductions, including things like Intimidate from Incineroar, or as I mentioned previously, Scary Face, and all that. But it does not ignore ruinous abilities. And lastly, we have the eject button, which makes the Pokemon holding the eject button in question switch out whenever they are hit. Of course, you can choose which Pokemon will come out afterwards. And lastly, we have the eject pack, which does the same thing as the eject button, but whenever the Pokemon stats are decreased during a battle, whether voluntarily or involuntarily. And lastly, we have Pokemon specific items. So, all that to say, when you're playing VGC, you need to keep a level head, right? You need to know exactly what you're doing and have some understanding of a game to be able to predict what your opponent will do. Else, you're going to have a very bad time, because matches can last as long as 2 turns, after which, you're fully done with a game. In 2 turns you can wipe the field completely off. So that's as fast as these games can go. And yeah. So if you like the content, please remember to like, comment and subscribe to the channel. Turn on all the notifications. And on that note, see you later. Peace.